time to listen to oral history is passing our younger generations by as they become enmeshed in occupations and leisure activities that sustain only the passing moment.
My job is to introduce Darcy Nicholas. Darcy, every now in your life, I'm just going to take a bit of time because it's there. Every now in your life, someone special comes along, and I hope for all of you, that's many times. Darcy's one of those people who got out and did the mahi himself, as well as being an artist. He's an indigenous international artist, but he's also an indigenous administrator, someone who's done that, and he hasn't only done it for himself, that's the point, he's done it for so many others. And just tripping over his little life, which starts as a freezing worker in Waitara, in Taranaki, he became a police officer and was part of a team who founded and developed Police Youth Aid Section. He became the director of the Wellington Arts Centre from 80 to 86, and that piloted the first artists employment program for the country, and he employed over 3,000 artists on the program. He won a Fulbright Cultural Award to study Native American and African American art movements in 85. In 86 he became the director of the Central Regional Arts Council, and then flipped out in 89 to become a director, an assistant general manager with the Iwi Transition Agency, this Maori Affairs policy work within government. And in 1991 he was appointed as the Porirua City Council to the council as Director of Cultural Services. He's currently the General Manager of Cultural Services for Porirua City, and one of his responsible areas is Pātaka. But he remains as one of the trustees of his tribal runanga and has kept an active interest in Māori development. He has travelled widely and exhibited regularly on the international art scene since 1984. And his work is held in many private and public collections around the world. And my final tribute to you, Darcy, an introduction to us in terms of this, I, along with the people that have been privileged to work here, and I'm looking down and looking out and seeing, stand for a moment to just reflect upon the amazing contribution that you have made, but you continue to make. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to welcome Darcy Nicholas. Kia ora tata.
Tēnā koutou Piri, mō tō tautoko, mō tō kōrero. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātaka tō. So, keynote speakers are people who should raise controversial issues or issues that people don't often like to raise themselves, and I intend to do quite a bit of that this morning, so that you've got a healthy debate, and also so that things can happen following this conference. It's becoming more and more difficult to understand the conflict between Maori and New Zealanders, because Maori ancestors are also of English, Irish, Scottish, French ancestors, and right across the world. We have intermarried so comprehensively and occupy so many of the positions of authority in this country that we have to take responsibility, both as Maori people and as a nation, and make positive changes that guide us towards a future of prosperity. In the fields of battle, and also in the sporting and academic achievements, we stand as one people. So as a nation, we also need to stand as one people. Today, Maori occupy powerful positions within Parliament, within law, within government, within private enterprise, the arts, and more important, intellectually, like we have never seen before. Those Maori, therefore, have a responsibility, as do all senior officials, to make changes in the interests of our country. The subject of our conference today and of our talk is Maori yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Every part of this land is part of us. We have changed as a people. My own children are part Scottish, Irish, English, and French, but see themselves as Maori and New Zealanders. My 50-plus nieces and nephews have married intertribally, interracially, and globally. My children have a view on life which is different to mine. My view of life is different to my parents, and their view of life was different to their parents, and their parents before them, and before them, and before them. Maori do not like to admit this, but the change has already happened, and it is unchangeable. So if we have changed as a people, is there anything that has not changed? Our ancestors saw the same sun, the same moon, and the same stars. The rain still falls and the wind blows. The mountains and the rivers and the sea are still there. All that has changed are the people, the clothing of the land. So what of the stories? Even our stories have changed as historians and anthropologists interpret our stories from their colonial or Christian eyes. The wind and the rain and the sun and the moon are made into gods with human gender, consequently losing their essence of the natural phenomena. In Maori cosmology, the natural elements, including the earth, have their own intelligence and their own life. Take the Rangi and Papa story. We all hear of the Rangi and Papa, what I call teddy bear stories, told both by our own people and other New Zealanders. Let's look at the Maori story of creation then. If we consider the concept that there is no beginning and there is no end. Mātua te kore, parent of a world beyond human imagination, casts the original seed of life. It is called te pō. From te pō, there is a spark of light. Light creates darkness, and darkness creates light. From light and darkness, the stars, the planets, the sun and moon, and the earth evolves. The light shines on the earth. There is a stirring, the ta. There is a movement in the land, a shimmering, the ne. And from the life forms evolve out of the earth. It is ahuone, the radiant soil. As the soil bursts into life, it becomes titama. Light is replaced by darkness. Nui te pō. Nui te pō is in the realm of the night sky. It is a reflection of the origins of our creation. The infinite space above is called rangi nui, and the sky from which, and the earth from which we all grow is papa tuanuku. Male gender is given to the soft light that stirs the life forms into existence, and we call that tāne. Tāne is described in Maori cosmology as son of the glowing heavens. Female gender is given to ahuone, titama, and nui te pō. They become hine ahuone, hine titama, and hine nui te pō. In a modern context, giving gender to the creations of nature can cause ridiculous debate, which does no justice to the depth of our culture. There are no gods in the Maori world, just the existence of what is, earth, wind, fire, liquid, and the unborn, infinite possibility. We exist constantly in the light and darkness of potential. Maori stories and their pure abstraction enabled our ancestors to have the courage to travel across vast oceans, to become fearless, and to create art of astounding power. Maori ancestors saw the earth as a living entity with its own intelligence and thought. The ability to survive was to understand the behaviour of nature and to live in harmony with its natural forces. Our food, our medicine, our protection, and our survival was dependent upon it. I don't know what caused the tribal wars. Wars are often created by men fighting over land, territorial rights, misdemeanours, or individual lust or greed. So I can only assume that we were no exception. So what made the Maori such a fearsome and fearless warrior? Let's look at the simple weapon, the taiaha. You can be skilled in the dexterity of the taiaha without fully understanding what its true power is. Many people treat the taiaha as a stick to whack people on the head with. A stick is never a stick when it is an instrument of spiritual power. I'll share two descriptions of the taiaha with you. One is the museum and the dictionary description. Now, the museum and the dictionary description says this: a weapon of hardwood about 5 foot long, having one end, the Aotearoa, carved in the shape of a tongue with a face on each side and adorned with a fillet of hair or feathers. The other end being a flat, smooth blade about 3 inches wide. Let's look at oral history that's been passed down. It's history that's not published, by the way. And it's history that is exchanged amongst small groups of us. Tai, the tide. Taiaha, tai, the tide. And aha, the breath. The tidal breath. The spirit of the taiaha begins with the pauakai, a giant bird that comes from the original seed of life, from te po, from the darkness into light and onto the earth. It touches the earth and transforms into the tuatara. When touched by the warrior, it rises and it becomes the forest, child of Tane. When used in battle, therefore, the weapon has the spiritual power from ancient origins. Through the use of ritual chant and practice, the warrior is already intertwined with the primeval parents, Ranginui and Papatuanuku. For the warrior going into battle, there can be no death, only victory, because he is walking the pathway of his ancestors. This is a small part of our oral history. There's much of our history and culture we must preserve as part of our completeness, as part of our cultural richness, as part of our creative inspiration, our history, and as part of the ever-changing world. The most interesting thing about tribal history is how forgiving modern Maori can be about it in the comparison with their feelings about the colonial war. The tribal wars between my tribe and the tribe of some of my friends were so vicious, yet Maori often passed jokes about what was done. At the same time, Maori seem to be absolutely obsessed, and this is not all Maori, with criticising the early colonists. Admittedly, some of the colonial hijinks to acquire Maori land was extraordinarily devious. However, we forget that many of the chieftain families who were part of the sale of Maori land actually benefited considerably from the deals and still hold positions as major shareholders in Maori land because of that. Most Maori today have mixed blood, and the very people they are criticising are the ancestors of many of their other Maori friends. What happened then is no fault of New Zealanders living today, because Maori are part of the government. They are part of the bureaucracy and in many cases are the guilty party who are stopping some of the land claims. I just want to share part of some of the ancient tribes of this country. Before my mother died, she found it important to tell me that we have always been on this land from time immemorial. She spoke of our people as being Kahui Maunga, Kahui Ao, Kahui Rere, who intermarried with the canoe people who migrated to this land. I have no reason to doubt her, as that was oral knowledge handed to her by her elders and their elders before them and before them. The story of the Pananehu, Maru, Iwi, Ruata, Maori and Aotearoa people who were here in ancient times is a Taranaki story, which we know. And it's a story shared by some of the older tribes of the South Island, like Waitaha, Kati, Māmoe, and also some of the Moriori people who are aware of that story. They are early inhabitants of this land. Each tribe has its own oral stories, and these were often never allowed to be taped or passed to common hands, because knowledge was the foundation of who we were as a people, and it was of absolute value. Unfortunately, in order to preserve the depth of our culture, this has now become a necessity. Time to listen to oral history is passing our younger generations by as they become enmeshed in occupations and leisure activities that sustain only the passing moment. Generations of elderly Maori who have small parts of knowledge that complete the mosaic of Maori history and custom are passing on every day. About 15 years ago, my great-grandaunt, Pota Hakarangi, looked at 500 years of written genealogy, which I showed her. In order to check its authenticity, she sat in a small house in Hawera reciting our family genealogy for approximately 3 minutes before she reached the first lines in our book. She went through each family line, quoting the whole family of brothers and sisters in order of the eldest to the youngest. Her 500 years of chanted genealogy was 100% correct and even more comprehensive than the one I had written. The oral history of our elders has to be told. It is already becoming too late, but we must also record the new history. History teaches us to understand the way we are. Creative art teaches us to understand the inner self, because all great art is a reflection of the individual. Some of Māoridom's greatest contemporary artists are now elders. I should mention at this time one of our greatest contemporary Maori artists is Selwyn Muru. His work has been comprehensive and across all art disciplines. He is a master orator, painter, sculptor, and keeper of knowledge that is ignored by most of our major institutions. He contributed a major article in our survey exhibition of his close friend Dr. Bucknan, who's another one of our great artists who has been ignored by the arts institutions, apart from some. Curators need to tap into the depth of knowledge and record them for future generations. If museums and art galleries are unable to carry out the recordings, they should encourage families to do it themselves, particularly in the case of people who have led interesting and full and important lives. Museums and art galleries are the creation of people and nations. If they become the creation only of individuals, they lose their value. However, for museums and art galleries to have value, they have to be driven by individuals with vision and a multiplicity that embraces all possibilities and all cultures. The strength of Maori culture and knowledge practiced by our ancestors is eroded day by day and generation by generation. We have to preserve the integrity and richness of our Maori culture because it is unique to this country. Our story is very ancient and is not only about our language, it is about understanding our part in our stories of creation. our relationship to the earth and sky, back to the original seed of life. On Maori leadership, museums and art galleries will play the most important part in preserving this history, because as a people, we have either already lost or are rapidly losing our traditional tribal leadership. There was a leadership system that was inherited or earned through the deeds of greatness that benefited the tribe. Without strong leadership, without strong vision, there is a lack of unity within many tribes that causes a veil of mistrust, extended family jealousies, and personality clashes. Changes in Maori leadership today are often confusing because they are either generational, political, or based on the rise and fall of public profiles. For museums and art galleries trying to establish a meaningful relationship with tribes, this can cause great stress and confusion. Where there is no harmony within tribes, the most valued person to museums and art galleries is a person with in-depth knowledge on the Maori history and custom. The kaumātua councils are often the best network into the tribes. They're often the most powerful influence because of their obvious networks of generations of family, and very often the tribal knowledge is part of that network. However, they will vary from tribe to tribe. So much will depend on your individual knowledge of your local tribe, or iwi. Eventually, Maori have to form a Maori nation so we can move on and become an important part of the shrinking global world. We need to stand together as one. Contemporary Maori artists are already working pan-tribally and globally as Maori artists with major exhibitions in Canada and the United States and several other countries continue with their good work. Maori show bands, actors, writers, opera singers, film directors, all work as international artists, describing themselves on the international scene as Maori rather than specifically tribal. Likewise, sporting personalities and business entrepreneurs are doing the same. With the spread of people born of Maori heritage now living right across the globe, we become part of the global culture of the world. As people on this planet, Maori call papatuanuku. We are all connected, yet we have our own special uniqueness. A Maori nation will comprise tribes, hapu, whānau, working together towards survival in a global world. Their uniqueness will be the depth of their cultural knowledge. Without that, they are no longer Maori, but citizens of the world. That is not a bad thing. That is just part of the evolution of life. There's never in our known history been a time when Maori have come under a single leadership. Yet, news media, governments and bureaucracies constantly try and place Maori under a single leadership. The single voice of Maori today is a myth. We exist in pockets around the globe, tribally, as rural entities, as business people, as urban people, as mixed nationalities and sporting professions, and as individuals. I just want to finish off now by talking about biculturalism. Biculturalism is not being two cultures. Biculturalism is allowing each other to be ourselves, yet respecting, sharing, and learning from each other. That is the way of the future, and the future is now. Nō reira, ngā tangata katoa, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.